Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michelle Marks, Chancellor here at CU Denver, and we are delighted to be hosting this stage of the presidential search process where we have the opportunity to engage and hear from and ask questions to the finalist, President Todd Saliman. I want to start by noting that we have 4 regents in the room. I'm going to introduce Chair Cole in just a moment, but I also want to acknowledge Regent Smith, Regent Chavez, who's somewhere I just saw a second ago. Yes, Regent Spiegel right next to her. We have Regent Emeritus Steve Bosley in the room. Hello, good to see you. And search committee members. I see Chris Hilton, and I don't know if there are others here as well, but thank you so much for joining us. And all of our faculty, staff, students, and friends who've joined us today. I am going to introduce the chairman of the Board of Regents, Jack Kroll, who's going to introduce President Saliman. And I want to say that Jack is our own CU Denver alumni and has always been a terrific support for our campus.
Well, I don't know if we have any business school students in the room, but I got to do something this afternoon that I've never been able to do, which is all the years I went to school here at night, getting my master's in finance degree and built on years of being an undergraduate student. I never got to park in the garage in the building of this, in the basement of this building until today. But welcome everybody to the CU Denver Open Forum. Today's forum is an opportunity for our community to engage with Todd Saliman, the board's finalist in the search for CU's president. We're going to hear a few remarks before we hand it over to Mr. Saliman from the chair of the search committee, Regent Leslie Smith, and then we will hand it over. I'll introduce actually Mr. Saliman after that, and then give him a few minutes to say a few words about him, and then we really want to use the bulk of our time to engage with the audience. We look forward to a rich and thoughtful conversation today. With that in mind, we ask everyone to pose your questions succinctly. This will allow us to get through more questions in the time we have. Many people have submitted questions in advance, and we also have people who are participating and submitting questions via the live stream. So welcome to all of those who are joining us remotely. In order to kind of keep things going in a fair and balanced way, we're going to rotate between questions from the room, online, and those that were submitted ahead of time. I'd like to also, and I'm sure Regent Smith will remind you of this as well, to complete the survey as part of this. And I know Regent Smith will have a few words to say about that. And that's a perfect segue actually to Regent Leslie Smith, who chaired the Presidential Search Committee, to talk a little bit about the process that got us to this point. So Regent Smith.
Great, thank you, Regent Kroll, and good afternoon, everyone. It's great that you're here. First off, I'd like to just say that I am incredibly honored to be able to have chaired the search. So that was a real honor for me. So I just want to spend a few minutes talking briefly about the process. It was a very inclusive process from the get-go. The board held roughly 40 listening sessions with stakeholders across the CU system, as well as the state. And we also had continual input over our website for the search. The board hired a search firm that had a proven track record in attracting very high quality, diverse candidates. And we were happy to have them helping us. The board assembled a search committee that included 19 individuals that reflected the diversity of our great state. All of the stakeholders within the CU system were nominated by their peers. And then we also had community members as well as alumni and one person from the CU Foundation. The top candidates were vetted and recommended by the search committee to the board. We used a rubric that was based on the job description in order to score each candidate. And that same rubric is what is the survey that we ask you to fill out. So you can see what the search committee used for evaluating candidates. So now it's your turn to have a chance to meet the finalist and provide feedback through that survey. And we're asking you to fill that out. Finally, I'd like to thank the search committee, and I know Chris is here, for all the hard work that they put in to provide us with the final candidate. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And thanks to Chris. I'll give another shout out. Chris is the chair also of the Inter-Campus Student Forum. So he is the official student representative for not just CU Denver, but all students in the CU system to the Board of Regents. It's a position that doesn't get a lot of love or glory or attention, but right now it's going to get some. So thank you, Chris, and please join me in giving him a round of applause. So following the work of the search committee, which was very diligent, as Regent Smith described, the board interviewed the 5 highly qualified unranked candidates that were forwarded to us by the search committee. We asked all the candidates that the board interviewed if they were willing to move forward as one of multiple public finalists. All but one candidate declined. What this meant, given this reality, and this is not uncommon in searches for university leadership, the board had to choose a candidate to forward to this stage in the process based off of all of the variables and all of the qualities that we assessed. And again, as Regent Smith noted, the rubric that you all will see in the survey today highlights many of those areas that we look to in making our decision. But again, we had to choose, and we believe Mr. Saliman to be the best person to forward to this stage in the process. The community now has a chance, of course, to provide input during the open forums and other ways of providing input, such as through the presidential search website, and the board will consider all of that input before making a decision at a meeting next week. Given that, it is now my pleasure to introduce Todd Saliman. Mr. Saliman stood out during the process for his experience, his knowledge of Colorado and CU, as well as his ability to work with multiple stakeholder groups to advance the mission of our university. Mr. Saliman's career has prepared him for this position. He is a CU alum. He has served in the legislature, in the cabinet for 2 of our state's governors, has been at CU for over a decade. And during that time, he served as our CFO and Senior Vice President for Government Relations and Strategy. He has served for this past academic year as interim president. More details about Mr. Saliman's background can be found on the Presidential Search website. Todd is a respected member of the CU community who has a collaborative style. He works well with the regents, the chancellors, faculty, students, staff, and shared governance leaders, as well as our community stakeholders. Please remember to submit your feedback, and we will now welcome Interim President Todd Saliman.
Thank you. So thank you all very much. Thanks for coming out today. And I look forward to our conversation and to your questions. I want to start off by introducing my wife, Michelle Siegel, right here. And my cousin, Eddie Saliman, came today, which is super nice of him. And so please welcome them. Thank you. And I think my parents and kids might be watching online too. So that's kind of cool. So just to begin with, I wanted to express my gratitude and for you all selecting me to be the finalist and to talk to all of you today. I'm so humbled to be here and to be part of the CU system and to be part of the incredible work we do. And so I'm truly honored, and what an amazing thing it is to be talking to you today about this position. So when I think about what we do at CU and our public mission, it's just we do so much to add to the value of Colorado and to our country and to the world. And I look forward to talking about some of the specific things we do and questions that you might have for me about that. You know, I really put our work into five buckets, and I'm sure we'll be talking about those buckets today. But one of them, of course, is our education and student success mission. Another is our work in research. Another is our work where we need to improve, and that is on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Another is community and the community service that our campuses and our faculty and our staff engage in, and our connection to Colorado. And finally, you know, we talk about the incredible work that we all do together, and just collaboration and working together. And it really is what brings us all together. And it's really what my style is all about. And so I just wanted to give you a little bit of information on one of those buckets right now. And then maybe we could talk about others as we go along. So you might have read that, my little quote that I want us to be the best. And I truly do. I want CU and the CU system and our campuses to be the best. And what does that mean in terms of those 5 buckets? Well, I'm going to talk about one of them, and that's diversity, equity, and inclusion. So when I talk about CU being the best, what that means to me is that for CU to reflect the diversity of our great state, to reflect the diversity of people and opinions in our state. And we don't right now. The one exception to that is the student body right here at CU Denver, because that is actually a place where we have success. And hats off to all of you for making that happen. But with faculty and staff, not so much. And that's the way it is at all of our campuses. We do not reflect the diversity of Colorado. And so one of the key things that I will be focusing on, that we will need to focus on together, because we all have to be on deck to do this work, is to attract more people to our student population and to our faculty and to our staff to reflect the diversity of our state. But it's going to take more than just the work involved with recruiting students, recruiting faculty, and recruiting staff. We actually have to have a community where people feel like they belong. Not one where people feel welcome, because welcome implies that you're a guest, right? It needs to be a community where the diversity of Colorado is woven into the very fabric of CU. And so that people feel that they have a place here, and that they want to go to, so students want to go to school here, people want to work here. And that when we talk about the research that we do, this is the place where people want to do research. This is where they want to get their healthcare. And we have so much work to do in that space. And that really, part of that work is really centered around our part of the way that we pursue that is through our outreach work. And that's something that I've really been focusing on, and that I will continue to focus on as we move forward. I actually think our outreach work is key to advancing pretty much everything that we want to achieve at the university. And the regents and I have prioritized this, and have actually engaged in our outreach throughout Colorado, and we're continuing to do that. And thanks to Tony Salazar right there, who runs that operation for us at the CU system. And when we talk about outreach, what we mean is going out to the people of Colorado and talking to them about CU and listening to them about what they want from us, so that we can be responsive to their needs, so that we can actually produce for the people of Colorado. And we've heard from the people of Colorado. They think we're awesome, but they also aren't always sure that there's a place here for them. We hear that from people of color. We hear that from rural Coloradans, and we hear that from conservatives. And it's something that we have to take head on and figure out how to make sure that we have a culture that people feel like they will belong to. But I also want to tell Colorado about all the incredible things and the incredible work that's going on our campuses. I want to talk to Colorado, and we are talking to Colorado about the students that were graduating, and the incredible things that they're doing, the amazing research we're doing, and the special things about each of our campuses. So instead of talking to Colorado about CU as a whole, let's talk to them about the pieces of it, highlight the individual things at each campus that makes us so proud, and which shows that there's a place for everyone here at one of our CU campuses. And that's what we're doing. And we know that higher education has challenges these days in terms of public perception. And that's part of our outreach work too, is to begin to change that perception, and to listen to people, and to produce for them what they need from us, and to share with them the amazing things we can do for them. And with that, so as that work develops and grows, we hope to change the public opinion about higher education. And so when we confront issues like state funding or ballot measures concerning higher education, the people of Colorado will be ready to give us their support, because they will believe not only in CU, but all of higher education. And this is something that I've been working on my whole life. You know, you heard from Regent Kroll that, you know, I was a state legislator for 8 years and was on the Joint Budget Committee there. And these are the kinds of things that these issues of equity and justice and commitment to public service, those are things that I've been working on my entire life. These are things that were in my speech when I ran for state representative in 1994. I found it in a box. It's really there in my speech. And then after doing that, I moved on to open up my own public affairs business. And I was committed to only serving the clients that I believed in. So I represented groups like mental health and developmental disabilities and healthcare and K through 12 education. And of course, higher education. I represented CU, and I've been advocating so much my entire life for funding for those important priorities in our state. After I did that, I moved on and went to Governor-elect Ritter and called me and he said, "Do you want to compete for the job to be the budget director for the state of Colorado?" And I said, and I did, and I competed, and I won, and I became the budget director for the state. But then we had this incredible recession there where revenues were just plummeting, and we had to prioritize the state budget. And I was lucky to work for such a wonderful person who I agreed with, and we prioritized things like human services and healthcare and K through 12 education and higher education. And I was so proud to be able to protect these things that are so critical to our state's success. And then, so I did that for a while. And then I had the wonderful opportunity to become the CFO of the CU system. And we'll talk about my work there, I suspect, as we go on today. And then about 10 months ago, these good people asked me to be the interim president. And what an honor. This is my dream job. And I said, because we actually had this conversation, and I said I wasn't interested in doing this job permanently, but I changed my mind. Obviously, here we are, and I changed my mind because I saw that I could be highly effective, understanding how how CU works, knowing how to get things done within the university organization, but also knowing how to connect to Colorado and knowing the importance of those external relationships and bringing that all together and providing leadership to the state for higher education. And so with all of that, I'm just so grateful to be here with you today. I love this place. I love Colorado. I love this university. I wouldn't be standing here today without if not for my CU degree. And I look forward to all the questions that you might have. So thank you.
All right, so we have some pre-submitted questions. We're going to receive some questions from those joining online, and then we have two folks here in the room. If you could look to the back of the room here and see our two staff members assisting with the questioning today. So if you're in the room and you want to ask a question, please raise your hand, and one of these individuals will bring you the microphone, and we will afford you the opportunity to ask your question. And with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. Does anybody want to be the first person to ask a question? All right, here we are. Just give us a moment to get you a microphone, and we will, the floor will be yours.
Thank you. Well, I am so glad that you changed your mind and so delighted to have you here today as the presidential finalist. I had the opportunity to participate in the Excellence in Leadership program several years ago. And I have to say, like, the way that you explained what was going on with the finances with CU and how that all worked, and it's very complicated, but when you explained it, I finally understood it. So thank you for that. And my question relates back to that. So, you know, we know that we have a lot of fiscal challenges. What are some of the challenges that you see, and maybe what is the one thing that you think that CU needs to do to prepare to face those challenges?
Thank you. So the one thing that I think that we need to do to prepare for those challenges is actually changing the conversation in Colorado around higher education. and to try to not just accept that fate, but instead to try to, redefine that future for ourselves. And so that's really a foundational piece of this outreach work is to really communicate to Colorado the challenges we're facing, for sure, but also to talk to them about the things that we can do for them, and to make sure that we're doing for them what they need us to do. And in terms of workforce, and in terms of accessibility, and making sure that there's a place here for all Coloradans. Because I think that's the key for us to really change that perception about not just CU, but about all of higher education in Colorado. So when you look at Colorado, so the Department of Higher Education did a study to determine what the peers were for all of the institutions in Colorado. And then it compared our funding to those institutions from around the country. And what it found is that in Colorado, we are funded, it would take an additional $940 million just to get the Colorado institutions of higher education up to our peer funding level. That's up to the average. So we're almost $1 billion short when it comes to higher education funding in Colorado, just to be average. And so we have a lot of work to do. And we do important work at the legislature every year. I'm so grateful to the legislature and to the governor this year for supporting a significant and 11% increase in higher education funding. But we're going to need to close that $940 million gap. We need to do a whole lot more. And for that to happen, the voters are going to have to get involved. And for them to get involved, they're going to need to have faith in all of higher education in Colorado, and belief in the value of higher education. And to make that happen, we need to talk to them, and we need to be part of the communities around Colorado and have this conversation. And so that's really, to me, that's the most important thing we can do. The year-to-year work with the legislators and with the community members and on the federal side is critically important. But we have a bigger problem, and that is this perception of higher education in this great state of ours, and we need to change that. And that's exactly what I want to do. Thank you.
So before I go to pre-submitted or an online question, is there another question from the audience? All right. And then once we take yours, sir, we're going to go to a couple of these other forums, and then we'll come back to the audience.
Todd knows me, but my name's Mike Dino. I'm a class of '88 MBA up at Leeds. And one of the things I wanted to get your perspective on is athletics. I think you're right. I've found myself out at Anschutz more than I like to be. I know all the research stuff, and certainly I get my weekly updates on the Leeds school. And there's a lot of awesome things that happen on all the campuses every day. And but athletics can overshadow what a university does, and particularly take over the messaging on it. And so, how do you feel you're going to address that, and what do you feel are some things that you can do to improve upon that balance that athletics has in terms of its presence in the public mindset versus what you want to accomplish from the academic side?
So thank you for that. So athletics and the regions, as we've traveled around the state, can confirm this. Athletics for many people is the front door to CU. And so when we're in Fort Morgan or Sterling, the first thing they ask about is athletics. And it's and they ask about it in a more casual and interactive way. Like there's excitement. And so athletics are a wonderful front door to Colorado for us, and we need to take advantage of that and walk through that door, and then talk to them about the other amazing things we do. And if athletics are a way to help open up the conversation and make people feel like we're connected to Colorado, then that is great. We will take that every day and use that as an opportunity to grow broader conversation with them. So athletics is also, a critical part of the educational journey for many students. And it's not just at CU Boulder, it's at UCCS too, where we have outstanding Division II athletics. And so my son, who might be watching right now, is a D3 runner. And I know the degree to which that's a critical part of his educational journey, and it creates community for him and for the other athletes, a baked in community right out of the gate, where students feel like they have a place. It's also, like you said, it can be a distraction and it can be a challenge, and those, and we of course want all the good that comes from it, and all the excitement and the spirit that comes from athletics. But from time to time, there are things that aren't awesome, right? And so it's our job to try to minimize that as much as possible, and to communicate the fact that these are student athletes and they're students first, and that's our first obligation to them. It has become, especially with football and with other sports as well, it's become more complicated with the portal and with the name and image likeness. I mean, this has become more complicated space, and we have not completely figured it out yet, just like every other college in the country is trying to figure this out. I personally think that there needs to be a federal solution when it comes to name, image, and likeness, because each institution in the country taking its own approach just it's not a sustainable path forward. And that's something that we've actually spoken to our federal delegation about. But I do see athletics as a whole as something that adds tremendous value to both Boulder and UCCS, and honestly to the whole CU system, because it does provide us with the front door, and it provides us with excitement, and it's something that we should embrace as a way to spread our message about the value of higher education in Colorado. Thank you.
All right, our next question is going to come from, on behalf of the University of Colorado Denver Association of Lecturers and Instructors, UC Dolly for short. The University of Colorado system, like higher education institutions across the country, relies on contingent faculty to meet its educational, scholarly, and creative missions. Here at CU Denver in 2021, 63.6% of faculty worked in the ranks of IRC faculty, aka non-tenured, tenure track faculty, accounting for 61% of tuition revenue, 67% of student credit hours, and 86% of core course sections. Yet despite their centrality to student success and university operations through service, IRC faculty are consistently paid lower and receive less professional support with fewer benefits and protections than tenure and tenure track colleagues. Should you become the next CU system president, how would you prioritize improving the working conditions and equitable treatment of IRC faculty?
Thank you. So IRC, Instructional, Research, and Clinical, that's what the IRC stand for. So this is a critical issue for us and at all of our campuses, because IRC faculty do so much of the teaching on all of our campuses, and we're incredibly grateful for the work they do. I think this is a problem that we have throughout the state in terms of compensation for IRC faculty. We hear about it at the legislature. We hear about it at the CEO meetings when I'm talking to my colleagues around the state, and it's a challenge for all of us. And this honestly, it gets us back to our conversation about outreach and trying to change the conversation about higher education in Colorado, because to really address some of these kind of vexing problems that we have in terms of compensation. And so there are three big expensive things that I think that we need to do better with. One of them is this, it's compensation for our faculty and our staff. It's financial aid for our students. We have $300 million of documented unmet need across our campuses for resident undergraduate students. And third is facilities and taking care of what we have, and making sure that we have outstanding facilities for students who spend their time here, and for our faculty who do research here, and for our staff who work here. And all of that comes down to being able to pay for all of that, and to really make meaningful progress in this space. we need to change the conversation about funding for higher education in Colorado. And that's what the outreach work is all about. Now that is going to take time. And so how do we deal with this on an incremental basis as we move forward? First of all, I think that when we're talking about our annual compensation increases, we need to make sure that we're including IRC faculty in that conversation, just like we did in the current fiscal year, and as we're doing in the next fiscal year. It's a priority for me, and that has not always been the case in the past. And I think that's a shortcoming, and that we need to fix it. But to really make meaningful progress over time in this effort, we're going to need additional funding for the state. And we've talked to the legislators about this. We've talked to them recently about this, that we would paying our faculty and staff better is it's not a particularly complicated thing. We can tell legislators exactly how much that costs, and we've told them, if you can make the funding available, we are happy to give you all the credit for doing that, and so that we can make meaningful progress in this area. And the legislators have responded. This year they did respond, and they did step up and provided additional funding to help pay for compensation increases at CU. And I'm very grateful for that. But we have a long way to go. And honestly, we're going to all need to work on that together over a long period of time, so we can change this perception of higher education in the state, and so that we can really, have a conversation with the voters about this challenge that we all have.
Great. I'm going to take a pre-submitted question, and then I'm coming back to the audience. So hopefully someone out there is noodling on their question. This is a question that's very important to this campus specifically. What is your vision, Todd, for the digital education strategy for the university?
Thank you. So I love this question. So my vision for digital education is kind of a hybrid future, and I actually don't even like the word hybrid, because it means so many different things, but it's a multimodal future. And this campus and the good work that's going on right here is really a hub of that for the University of Colorado system. So we had been heading down a path where our online only offerings and were essentially being centrally administered through the Office of Digital Education. And the folks in that office were doing excellent work, and I'm incredibly grateful for the work that they have been doing with the campuses to be successful in the space. But then we had the pandemic, and it kind of opened up a whole new world for us. I mean, obviously, everyone went online, right? Digital education was nothing special anymore. It was something that everyone had to engage in. And then as we began to transition, I hesitate to say out of the pandemic, but you all know what I mean. As we all kind of started to move past that kind of the dark days of the pandemic, and we began to see that our students want options, and they want to be able to have multimodal options right here available to them on the campuses. And that's it. And that's exactly what CU Denver is committed to providing. And so we revisited this centralized approach, and we've actually implemented a change to head in a different direction, so that it's more of a campus-based approach, where we will continue to have online only options for students. Those will be offered through the campuses, of course, but we'll also add to that these hybrid learning options for students, and we'll take advantage of the same infrastructure, so that we can have some economies of scale. So we're going to keep some of that technology infrastructure centralized. We'll do some of the brand marketing, the overall marketing centrally, because it'll promote all the campuses. But many of the student services and learning design activities that have been located centrally, those will move to the campuses. And the reason for that is to try to maximize our ability to streamline the student experience, so that students don't have to go to one place for their online offerings and to another place for their in-person offerings, but to make it a seamless experience for the students, and to really be responsive to student demand, honestly, that they have options, learning options. And we we are right in the middle of implementing that. And so I suspect there will be bumps along the way. And I suspect you all will tell us about those bumps when we hit them. And we want that feedback. But we're excited about the new direction that this is going in, and we're confident that it'll be successful.
Okay, someone in the audience with a question. Oh, I see one right back here. So we'll go here. And then I believe you raised your hand here. So we'll take this question, then we'll come up here.
Hi, thanks for stopping in and seeing us today here in Denver. My name is Danny. I'm a PhD student in the College of Architecture and Planning. And I did a little research about your background. And it seems that you've been really involved in sort of budgeting processes, not only at CU directly, but in past administrations at the state level, and really been involved in creating conditions of austerity that many of us have felt and continue to feel in the CU system. And I'm wondering how you square that with the vision statement of the University of Colorado, which I took the liberty of downloading. A place that provides a quality and affordable education with outstanding teaching, learning, research, service, and healthcare. Says a few other things. And it also says CU will expand student success, diversity, and the economic foundation of the state of Colorado. Given the state of student debt in this world, given the state of services and support for PhD students like me and other graduate students, we don't have healthcare. We don't have healthcare at a university that has its own medical school. How do you plan to square that and make sure that we're supporting students and faculty and graduate assistants and the people that make this place run, staff, in a way that reflects respect and honor for the work that's done here?
Great. Thank you. So, I've spent my life, as you researched, dedicated to trying to honestly to increase funding for the things that I feel most strongly about. And it's funny, I got into budget work initially in my career, not because I'm a big, not to say there's anything wrong with this, but not because not because I love math, not because I'm an economist, but because I care about where we spend the money, and where you spend the money indicates where your priorities lie. And that's why I've always been interested in budgeting. And that's why I got into this, so that I could help direct funds to the things that I personally, held valuable, and that the things that I personally thought were valuable. So things like higher education and K through 12 and human services, and I've had wonderful success, and I'm so blessed to have some success over my lifetime to increase funding for some of these critical things in Colorado. But we also have this kind of funky constitution in Colorado that has this that limits the amount of revenue the state can retain from year to year. And that constitutional amendment, it's called the Tabor Amendment, has really restrained the state's resources over time. And so it's something that I have spent many, many years. I campaigned on it in 1994 to try to, to express concerns about the limitations that were in that ballot measure or in that constitutional amendment, even before it truly started having an effect on Colorado. But the reality of all of it is that we now live in a state where the state revenues that the state is allowed to keep don't keep up with the increasing costs associated with the services that we all depend on. And we have tried repeatedly over time to talk to the voters of Colorado about changing that and about allowing us to retain some of that money, and they've said no. And I've personally worked on these ballot measures where we have attempted to do that. And that's why this outreach work is so important, because we need to have this conversation, because clearly the way we were doing it, it hasn't been working, right? And so we need to have a conversation with the people of Colorado to give them faith and excitement about what higher education can provide to Colorado, and to give them kind of a hope that I could think that many of us feel by being associated with the University of Colorado. And once we can, and that's my aspiration, is that once we can change the hearts and minds of Coloradans in terms of the value that we add to the state, then maybe we can have another conversation with them so that we can get the funding that you're talking about. Now that we've also have we've also not, it's not just a Tabor story, it's also an economic story. So but just like every other state, suffer from the same economic cycles. We suffer and benefit from the same economic cycles that impact the entire country. And so back in 2008, we had this horrible recession where where revenues shrank by billions and billions of dollars. And it was, I mean, I lived it, right? It was my job to keep our budget balanced, which is constitutionally mandated. And so what was most important then, and the big lesson I learned back then, is that the only thing that's more important than being the state's budget director when there is money is to be the state's budget director when there is no money at all, because then you get to decide what to protect. And that's when we chose to protect higher education and K through 12 and human services. And it doesn't mean that they weren't cut, because everything got cut, but they weren't cut nearly as deeply as they would have been if we wouldn't have had people there, me and the governor and legislators who wanted to protect it. And then, you know, and then the sun came up and the recession began to end. And since the year 2012, state funding for higher education in Colorado has more than doubled. That's an incredible thing. And we have been on the front lines of that effort to increase funding for higher education. And so you all should be proud of the outstanding work that's being done by the people at CU who are advocating for you to try to make progress on exactly what you're talking about. But like I said earlier, we have got to change this conversation in Colorado. And the way we're going to do that is to actually talk to Coloradans and do outreach and embed people throughout Colorado to reconnect to the community, to try to convince Colorado about the incredible opportunities that we have available for them, and to listen to them about what they need, what they want from us.
So before we get to this question, I want to just circle back to the second issue that I think the graduate student brought up, which is the issue of student health insurance. Do you have any thoughts on that piece?
So this is a national challenge for that we have, of course, and I think our students they have a particular vulnerability, honestly, because of your income, right, and because of the availability of insurance products that can actually serve you, right? And so this is a challenge that we've been talking about and trying to figure out ways to engage in. And honestly, it's incredibly challenging. It's very expensive, like you know, and we're searching for a path forward on it. But the cost of healthcare is real, and it's an additional expense for us as well. And so the question that we have to address is is there a way for us to engage in that in a way that benefits our students, but also allows us to continue to provide the other financial supports and benefits that we rely on, and to keep tuition in check. You know, these are all things that butt up against each other. And honestly, it comes down to this overall funding challenge that we have. I mean, it all comes back to the same thing time and time again, the funding challenges that we have, and things, you know, healthcare, financial aid, compensation, facilities, they all have something in common. And that's why we need to engage with the people of Colorado to try to change this conversation about funding in higher education.
Great, we'll take your question next.
So when you were talking about engaging diverse communities, you mentioned that a lot of conservative people don't really see themselves as having a place at Colorado. And as I think about the upcoming drop off of students, our next door neighbor, Utah, is one of the fastest growing, youngest states. And I'm thinking, I know a lot of people that from Colorado that send their students to Utah because they're more conservative and they don't feel they have a place here in Colorado for higher education. And I'm just wondering, how would you specifically address that? That maybe we could attract to keep some of our students that are running away because they and their families don't feel there's a place for them. And also how we might attract some students even from our neighboring states who have a huge unmet need for higher ed as well because they can't handle the capacity.
Thank you. So one of the reasons Utah can approaches some of our students also is that they're better funded and they provide more financial aid. But so that gets back to the funding thing again. But when I talk about reflecting the diversity of our great state and wanting to create a place where all people feel welcome, it includes conservatives too. And the regents have actually defined what diversity means for Colorado, for the University of Colorado. And it's a broad definition and it's online and you can take a look at it, but it includes exactly what you're talking about. And so we just did the survey, the CWC survey that you might have heard a little bit about. And it's this wonderful tool that thanks to some of you, if you took it, that is going to show us kind of our culture challenges that we have. And it's going to tell us about what parts of each campus where challenges exist. And the power of the survey is in the kind of self-identifying information that people fill out, so that we can see if a certain student population or honestly staff and faculty too don't feel comfortable in a particular department or even campus-wide. And we're going to use that as a map for us to help guide our work. But that's part of the commitment. And we hear what you're talking about when we go around the state from rural Coloradans. Is there a place for me at one of the campuses? And so that's absolutely part of this cultural conversation that we need to have. How do we create a place here on our campuses where people feel like they'll be welcome and respected and belong? And it applies to people who have different political philosophies, as well as people from different ethnicities. And that we have a long list of protected classes here at the University of Colorado, and we're committed to wanting to be a welcoming place for all of them. And I said the word welcoming, which I don't like. So, but where people from all of these communities feel they belong. It is an opportunity too.
So the next question will go to the online audience for one of the challenges the University of Colorado is being able to differentiate and celebrate the unique strengths of each campus. What do you see as the strengths of CU Denver, and how do you plan to promote and differentiate CU Denver from our close neighbor, CU Boulder?
Great. So CU Denver has amazing strengths, and we're actually sitting here in one of them. And we have CU Denver is Colorado's only urban research institution, and what a gem it is, right? And thank you to Chancellor Marks for your outstanding work on the campus strategic plan, which has really set a clear vision for where this campus can go in the future. When we talk about the special things we have at CU Denver, we were just having. So I don't see the person in here, but we were talking about the School of Education here at CU Denver and the amazing things that are done through the School of Education to bring teachers, honestly, to all the corners of Colorado, and the amazing outreach that's done. The applied research that goes on here that really connects to the community in architecture and planning. Didn't somebody say they're from architecture and planning? I thought, yeah. So the the real world work that's done to help our communities, something to celebrate. When we look at the work that's being done here on this very campus to achieve this goal of reflecting the diversity of the state of Colorado. So CU Denver is in a better position than any of our campuses, honestly, when it comes to that. And, and I feel like this campus is fully engaged in doing even better in that space through multiple examples of work that's going on here. And those are things to celebrate. And so how do we differentiate? We go out, so when we do this marketing work and we go out and we talk to the people of Colorado, we don't talk about CU as one big thing. We talk about the individual pieces and parts of our campuses. And we point to the individual things that our campuses are doing that we can really grab onto and celebrate and show people that there's a place for them here. So I actually think that's the key to our success. Instead of talking about CU as one thing, show the people of Colorado what each of our campuses has to offer. And this is like one of the, this is one of those situations where I actually think the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, because it's those little pieces and parts. That's what excites people. And that's what people want to be part of. And that's what we need to tell Colorado about.
Great. So the next question is one from those pre-submitted. What major changes would you introduce as a permanent CU president that you could not do as an interim?
Well, that's fun. So lots of things. So this outreach work, honestly, it's just getting going. And what I just said, what I just spoke passionately about, celebrating these individual pieces and parts, we haven't done that yet. So I want to get going on that. And but I've been waiting, honestly, because it might not have been me, right? And so if the region's selecting somebody else, that other person might have a different vision for how to communicate to Colorado. And so we pressed pause a little bit, waiting to see. I pressed pause a little bit because I didn't want to trap somebody if it wasn't me. But now, hopefully, it is. And now I want to get going and really embrace that work and engage in that outreach work. I also feel like we have the tools that we need now with the CWC survey to truly engage in a more proactive ways, university system-wide, on diversity, equity, and inclusion to identify the areas where we need work. We already knew we had problems, but now with that survey, we actually have a map that can show us where the work needs to be done. I want to lead this conversation in Colorado about funding and challenge the people of Colorado to the future that we know we can provide to the state and the incredible workforce that we can provide to the state. And if I become the guy, then that would be a wonderful thing that I would love to engage in and love to do. And also in research, looking at this. So the University of Colorado is so I don't know if people know this, and this is something everyone should know. We are the 10th ranked system in the country when it comes to research funding, the 10th ranked system in the country. We go toe to toe with the biggest, most well-known institutions, both public and private, in this country. And I would love to take us even further and to work with our extraordinary faculty, because research doesn't just happen, it's the faculty who do that research, and work with them to identify ways to build on our successes and identify areas where we have opportunities, where we haven't been doing as well as we can do. And we just have this extraordinary opportunity with our labs, with our federal labs and our business community in Colorado and the other higher education institutions, incredible partners in the state. And it's time for us to stop being the best kept secret in the country and instead be the most celebrated system in the country.
We have time for about one more question. We have 3 hands that went up. So I saw this hand first, but then we'll come over here. And so we're going to get 2 questions in and we'll come to you, Miss, next. So brief answers.
Okay.
I'll try to talk fast as well. So we, SCU Denver, receive a lot of attention for being student serving, urban serving. But we also have a lot of fantastic researchers, which I feel like externally is not recognized. So I'd be curious of your thoughts of our campus as a research and creative activity hub, and also how you would see us interfacing with our other campuses to make the most of our distinctions between the campuses.
So first of all, I agree with you that folks don't appreciate the amazing research that goes on here. And so we have work to do there. And your first question, I'm sorry, I remember the second one I remember. Yeah. Yep. So really that's a key piece of the marketing work, is to identify the things that we want to celebrate on each campus and then actually market those things and talk to the people of Colorado about them, both in terms of our outreach work and in our marketing work. And that's something that I feel like the CU system can provide to all of our campuses as we go and we try to spread the word about the power of the CU system based upon the incredible work that's going on our campuses. The other opportunities to do that is through working with policymakers and business leaders around the state to share with them the amazing work that's going on here that they might not even know is available. So how do we promote kind of coordination and collaboration between the campuses? We actually have begun to set up partnership incentives that encourage collaborations between campuses when it comes to research. And it's so important to me when we talk about research that we look at it holistically. It's the hard sciences, social sciences, humanities, and the arts. And it's really important that we not just think of it in one little lane. And we're actually working on a project right now. How can we improve collaboration between the humanities and arts and social sciences and the sciences? And how can we promote or create incentives to encourage more collaboration between the campuses in that area?
Please.
I have a question about staff. You talked about attracting more people, more diverse staff, faculty and student body, but I'd like to talk to you about our staff in particular, our people that are here and retaining them. I serve on the campus staff council and also UCSC. And we are seeing a large amount of turnover of staff, as well as hearing great reports of staff feeling overworked, underpaid, and unappreciated, and being voluntold, given additional responsibilities with little and in many cases no additional compensation. Feeling like there's no career progression, mentorship, promotion from within opportunities, things like that. So I would like to know about how you feel like you can address these at a system level and also give chancellors the chance to address these issues and concerns at campus levels, and just what your ideas are about that.
Thank you. So this is a huge problem at CU and at, unfortunately other employers around Colorado too. So we have absolutely been the victim of the Great Resignation, and we have lost staff, which has resulted, just like you said, in the people who remain having more work to do. And what has been incredibly challenging is filling those positions. I think that we have many vacancies. We don't necessarily have enough applicants, and it's a big old challenge. One of the keys, I think, is to make sure that our HR offices are appropriately staffed themselves so that they can do the work that needs to be done to fill the positions as they become open. But unfortunately, there's not like an easy answer or easy solution on this, because we are working really hard, as I'm sure you know, to fill these vacant positions, and it's just really difficult. And so this additional workload that you're talking about, it's only sustainable for so long, right? And then you get into this horrible kind of vortex of people, getting overworked, and then they leave, and then people remain and get even more overworked, and it's really challenging. And so we need to be open to the idea of sometimes when you have fewer people, sometimes you actually do less work, right? And so we need to be open to these ideas and conversations with our supervisors and with our with the staff and the faculty and the administration on the campus. But I wish I had like a great old solution for this, but honestly, I don't. There's not like some system can't swoop in and solve that problem. And honestly, Chancellor Marks and I were talking about this and how it's such a vexing problem on the campus and how it's a challenge for so many. I talked about this at UCCS yesterday, like almost the exact same question. And all we can do is do our very best to fill those positions as they become open. And but it is challenging. And so honestly, if you or anybody else who's watching has suggestions for us on this, we'd love to hear them because we are open. So thank you.
Okay, we're going to have to wrap things up. Before I provide a few closing remarks, any last thoughts from you, Todd Saliman?
Well, thank you very much. Chris wanted to.
Chris, I gave you a shout out earlier and I said how important you are. So we better give you the microphone and let you stand and deliver for a moment, sir.
But I'll go with it. I just wanted to take a moment because there is so much commotion around this entire process to really thank two specific people up on that stage. Regent Smith, this process I know will get grilled regardless of any outcome. And I really want to testify to the fact that it was such a wonderful experience in terms of the voices it brought together, the collaboration we had, and honestly, the potential outcome we're getting. So thank you so much for allowing me to be part of that and shepherding it along there. As a student, you're alone in these rooms often. And it was really wonderful how often my voice got amplified in that space. And then specifically, I spent the entire year as the student rep to the Board of Regents and to the President's office. And something that sort of gets skipped over in this last year is how much backroom work Todd has put into working with our congressional delegations, both at the federal level, but at the state level. I had this amazing experience to present to the Joint Budget Committee that Todd invited myself and the faculty assembly chair to. And it really was just an interesting approach that the JBC responded so well to. And I just really wanted to thank both of you guys for those different approaches and how much I think that has helped our community.
Okay. Well, thank you. So thank you all for taking the time and coming out to chat. And you all know I'm easy to get a hold of. So you all have my email address, and please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm an open book. There's lots of stuff about me out there, and so please take a look at that. And if you have questions about it, don't hesitate to ask me. I am so honored, like I said at the beginning, to be able to stand here and talk to you about maybe getting this job permanently. And this truly is, like I said, this truly is my dream job. I do love this state, and I've spent my whole life in public service to try to make the state better. And what an honor it would be to get to do that here at the University of Colorado. So thank you very much. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you have other questions.
So I want to remind everybody to please visit the CU Presidential Search website. You can complete the survey there as well. I want to also take a moment to recognize the staff that helped put this together today. So from the President's office and the campus, thank you all those who were helping ask questions. Please join me in a round of applause for everybody who made today possible. And with that, folks, thank you all for joining us today. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and go Lynx.